Assalamu alaikum. Kem cho sagla? So I have about 10 minutes to make this presentation. I'll try to do justice to that time. I actually decided to broaden the title out a little bit. Instead of innovations in medicine, it's innovations in healthcare. And my inspiration comes, next slide please. My inspiration comes from Mola's kalemat. Aap Mola farmawe che ki muminin khayal si dur jaye, innovation lave. અને બહેસ રિસર્ચમાં દૂર જાય આ અશરા મુબારકમાં ફરમાયું મેન્યુફેક્ચરિંગ બી કરે ઇન્ડસ્ટ્રી બી કરે અને પછી મોલા એમ પણ ફરમાવે છે કે મુમિનીન એના પ્રોફેશનમાં ટોપમાં હોય મને એમ પસંદ નથી કે કોઈ ભી બીજા નંબર પર હોય what better way to innovate in your profession than to innovate in it, to be on the top of your profession than to innovate in it. Next slide please. આપ સગલાને ખબર છે healthcare is a problem-rich area. And I won't go into detail, read the slide here. Most of you work to help companies in healthcare with your research, with your jobs, with your profession, either as consultants or as employees or as small companies that support them. But it's their idea, it's their product. It's their business. Why not make it your business? Why can't you do the same thing that they are doing? And so, next slide, please. These are the general areas of healthcare as defined by the Food and Drug Administration. Products in these three main areas. There's pharmaceuticals, of course. There is medical devices. And then there is digital health. And solutions can be found in each of them. For example, in pharmaceuticals, drugs, biologics, immunotherapies, genomics. Genomics includes things like precision medicine or personalized medicine. In diagnostics and imaging, in medical devices, diagnostics and imaging, interventional devices, nu sunu apne, surgical robotics, and in digital health, the whole gamut there, from health management systems all the way to AI systems. In general, products to develop and get a product into the market in the pharmaceutical area versus the medical device area versus digital health. It takes hundreds of millions in pharmaceuticals. In medical devices, it's tens of millions. And in the digital health, a few million. So you have to choose wisely. Next slide, please. My area is in medical devices, in diagnostics and imaging. And the rules, though, can be applied to any of these areas. And the reason I was interested in diagnostics and imaging, although it's perhaps less than 5% of the US healthcare budget, it drives the other 95% of the healthcare expenditure in the United States. So, but the rules, again, are the same in terms of how you go about innovating in these areas. So, next slide, please. What to pursue? So first, find that unmet need. This is what you do every day. This is what your work is. You know what the pain points are. You know where the innovation is needed. You know, for example, where the challenges are. Things like gaps in treatment, access in quality or access to care. All of these areas are where the pain points are. This is the main thing. This is where the market fit needs to be determined. Once you do that, can you come up with a solution that can have better outcomes? Can you find a solution that can help reduce cost, reduce time for the patient or for the physician? Can you improve their experience? Can you come up with a solution that will help do that? That's a winning product. And whilst you're doing that, look out also for how are you going to get this through the regulatory process, through the FDA. If you're in Canadian Health Canada, if you're in Europe, the CE mark, how are you going to do that? Is there another product that you can emulate or you can use their regulatory pathway as yours? And finally, very importantly, is there reimbursement available for this? Who's going to pay for it? Are there already CPT codes available for this kind of process or this kind of product? Next slide, please. So to illustrate, I want to use the example of belly check. Many years ago, when my son was born at an Atlanta hospital, Northside Hospital, and I see a couple of Atlanta faces here, it was in the midst of a snowstorm. And if anybody knows anything about Atlanta, the whole city shuts down. We brought mother and baby home, and as soon as we brought them home, we got a call from the hospital saying, bring them back, because the heel stick that they had done, the results came back with elevated bilirubin. And so we needed to bring the baby. There was no way we could do that. Alhamdulillah, Maulana Duasi, everything turned out fine. But that gave us an idea. What if this could be done better? What if there was a better solution? And so we started looking for a device, for an idea, really, for a technology. How can we do this better? And so we found that we licensed some technology at MD Anderson in Texas. And we took that technology, we developed it, and next slide, please. We launched BellyCheck. And it met all of these criteria. It met the unmet market need. It had a market fit. It gave better outcomes. We actually, this was way before, Theranos or Elizabeth Holmes. This was taking a blood test, a heel stick blood test, and replacing it with a non-invasive test. And it improved outcomes. Our marketing tagline was as gentle as a mother's kiss. It made sense. And we got it approved through the FDA through a very relatively quick 510K process, a regulatory path, and we used the same CPT code as the heel stick, and we got reimbursement for that. And so this device basically has now become the standard of care worldwide. And now that the patents have run out, there are so many copycat devices, mainly from China. So this is an example of how you can take an unmet need, find that problem, find that, and come up with a solution, and find something that you can chew on, something that you can somehow pay for, develop, and come up with a solution. And today, this product is sold by Philips, and it's about a $250 million market for them. Next slide, please. So you have to follow some rules. Perhaps the most important is to protect yourself. At least apply for a provisional patent, because that gives you a year in which you can test out your idea, talk to people, talk to clinicians, talk to your coworkers, talk to your patients, and figure out if this is something that has a market fit. This has legs, this can walk, this can do what you think you want to do. When you go to the USPTO website, or you look in Google Patents, and look for similar technologies, what have other people done in this area? You'll be surprised. You're not the only one who's had this bright idea. There'll be many, many patents, there are many, many many inventors who have thought in the same lines. And maybe they have they have a patent in exactly what you want to do. Maybe not, and that's your opportunity. That is where you can apply for your provisional, and you can go and file for it. Get help. So for example, this autumn, Association of University Technology Managers. It is a repository of all of the technology that has been developed at universities in the United States, both universities and national labs. And most of this technology is available for licensing. So if you can find your solution there, maybe you don't even have to apply for the patent. You get that solution, and they're very happy to work with you. They will even fund some of the initial work that you want to do, because they want their technology to go out there. Look in your institution. Many institutions encourage innovation. They will seed fund your idea. They will give you money to actually pursue that idea. Look at publications in the field. The authors of publications, they are your next partners. Or, professional societies, and of course there's LinkedIn, and SPMA. And then you have to find the money. And for money, again, your institution can help, friends and family, the National Science Foundation, the National Institutes of Health, the Department of Defense actually supports, now of course called the Department of War, it supports a lot of medical research. You can get grants, and so what's known as a minimally viable product. If you can build something, you can then attract a lot of attention towards your idea. And this is exactly what a lot of these large companies are doing today. In fact, most large companies, I call them conglomerates, they don't do original research. They look at a whole bunch of small companies and they follow you. And if they see that you have come up with something, they'll be happy to partner with you. Next slide, please. You might have to pivot sometime. You can come up with an idea, but sometimes that idea does not work. So I present to you the story of PillCam. This is I'm sure everybody's heard of this. This is the swallowable camera that was originally intended for the entire GI tract. But it never worked for the esophagus because it could not replace duodenoscopy, EGD. And it could not replace colonoscopy. But it found a very important and a sweet spot with the small bowel because there was nothing for that. And now this device, it generated a lot of buzz and there was a lot of attention. This device has now become the standard of care because there is really nothing for the small bowel to image it. Now, keep in mind, all of this work was done before AI came about. So the images that are generated, they can now, people can use AI and do a much better job at diagnosing. But all it did was generate the images. And it gave the positional information wherever the capsule traveled. It's an 8-hour transit. Wherever the capsule traveled, it took images, and you could then locate exactly where those images came from. And so now this product was purchased by Covidien, was almost $1 billion exit. And today is being marketed by Medtronic. Next slide, please. So the rewards are significant. If you can get a product to market like this, these are just some exits in last year, 2024. There are products in lithotripsy, in genetic testing. We've heard some presentations in this conference about that, in AI. And again, in general, the outcomes are, if you can get it to a point where you attract a large conglomerate to buy your product, your business, it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars. In fact, historically, which is the next slide, deal valuations have been in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And the red line, the pink line there, is for 510K products, which are simpler and takes less money to develop. And then the pre-market approval products, the PMA products, are the ones that require extensive clinical studies. So again, depending on how much money you can raise and what your idea is, you can go on either path. Today, actually over the last few years, we've been working on a better mammography system. And don't get me wrong, mammography is still the best tool we have for early detection of breast cancer in asymptomatic women. But mammography fails many women, particularly women with dense breast tissue. And in fact, 25% of women who are found to have breast cancer do so despite routine mammography. And the FDA and other agencies have now recognized that and have put out advisories The reason that happens is today's mammography technology generates a lot of scattered radiation. And scattered radiation is like a cloud. And it's kind of like when you're driving on the road and there's fog, it's very hard to tell where the road is. The same thing happens in a mammography image, where if there is a lot of fog, a radiologist is unable to detect the subtle changes that are responsible for breast cancer. And mammography is actually one of the most challenging of radiology tasks, because unlike looking at bone or cartilage from soft tissue, what you're trying to discern is one type of soft tissue from another. And it's almost like, I like to say, it's finding a snowball in a snowstorm. It's very hard to see it. And so if you have a lot of scattered radiation and the cloud around it, it's very hard to say, to see the subtle changes responsible for breast cancer. And so our technology, we've developed some technology over the last 5 years that gets rid of the scattered radiation entirely. And so we generate these images that are much clearer. In fact, our, next slide, please. In fact, that's a picture of our current prototype, which we just about 6 months ago delivered to Johns Hopkins. It's without the aesthetic covers. This is what it looks like when it's not pretty. This product gets rid of the scattered radiation with our patented technology, doubles the radiation, the spatial and contrast resolution of today's mammography using less than half the radiation. And very importantly, it does not require the painful breast compression. So that is a huge attraction, because discomfort and pain from breast compression that is common in mammography is the #1 reason for non-compliance. So a lot of women just don't comply with mammography recommendations, including apni community. And so by getting rid of that, we believe that more women will comply with mammography recommendations, and the higher resolution, higher contrast will help us catch. Artificial intelligence, there are many companies that apply AI algorithms to this, and so we believe that the same cloud that hurts a radiologist's ability to see lesions is the same that will also challenge any AI algorithm. So by getting rid of that, we believe that this will do a much better job. I hope I have left you with some inspiration of doing your own work. You're already doing it for somebody else. Think about doing it for yourself. Thank you. It is the most litigious modality. If you miss it, and radiologists are scared of missing cancer. And so because of that, they will send you to a whole bunch of additional tests and biopsy. I didn't get the chance to go into it, but 4 out of 5 biopsies turn out to be negative. So there's a lot of women who are being biopsied unnecessarily because radiologists are scared of, it's a CYA mechanism. Right now there aren't, because they use this cone beam technology today, which requires this kind of flat compression. So our device does not require that.
What is magnetic resonance mammography?
This is all using X-rays, but MRI, which you're referring to, is another test, but MRI requires injection of a contrast. And so you cannot use it for screening. MRI is the most accurate. Yeah, it is the most accurate, but it requires contrast injection. So it's used more, once you find cancer in somebody, then it's used to stage and diagnose. But you cannot use it for a primary screening tool.
Yeah, that's the common clarification. So payers are not going to pay for MRI.
or if you have a high-risk case, or yeah.
If you have normal mammography in the high-risk patient, then
But the other issue with MRI is it's scarce. It's not available everywhere. Yeah. Sorry.
Have you heard of the iCorps process for the product market fit?
Yes.
What do you think about it?
We went through that.
Okay.
Yes. We went through the ICOR process.
So, like, what's the position, like, practicality? Like, you said it's like an X-ray, so what's...
It is, as far as the patient is concerned, they will not know the difference. It is using X-rays, but it is using a different way of applying the X-ray. And I didn't have time to go into all of that, but because of that, it's a scanning technology. We get rid of the scattered radiation completely.
So breast, the reason I was asking that, would breast size be a problem? Like large breasts is of course okay, but like there are a lot of skinny patients who don't have the size. So does that matter?
It doesn't. Again, as far as it looks and it works just as a regular mammography machine, except that it uses a different way of making the measurement. Yeah, but it is intended for 99.9% of women. No, that's what we're gathering data. That's where we're working with. And that's the other thing, so the regulatory path. When you look for a product, you have to look for something that has an easier path through the FDA. So we can actually piggyback on existing mammography systems and use the same roadmap with the FDA as other vendors. And mammography is a very well tread path.
Can you clarify what you did during the iCorps process, and is there a different process that you also recommend?
So the ICOR process came about because we got an NIH grant to fund some of this work. And so they made us go through this because they wanted to know how well we have, how good our market fit is, things like reimbursement, things like cost, all of that. So I think I would recommend it. I mean, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of, you have to reach out to at least 100 radiologists and get their opinion. And we found that there was a huge amount of excitement about this product. Because today, what has happened is with mammography, everybody's gone into 3D, so-called 3D, with tomosynthesis. The problem with 3D tomosynthesis is that now the radiologist, instead of looking at 4 radiographs, he has to look at 300. And so it's a huge burden on them. And so there's a huge need for something that makes it a simpler process.
I'm going through the beginning of the iCorps process right now, and so there's no excitement in the sense that you're not telling anybody about your product, you're just getting information from the customer body.
There's some information you still have to provide them, right? Yeah. But you have to be careful. Now, if your patents are already issued and granted, you can be more free in disclosing your technology, which we were.
Okay, maybe I misunderstood, because as we were going through the process, they were saying that you don't want to use the product at all. You just want to ask questions that will glean insight on your product for development. So maybe I misunderstood the process.
Maybe, yeah. Okay. Thank you.